Introduce to you Sharon. Sharon I met at the Mission Church. They have a group called Mothers in Touch Together. It's a mom's Bible study during the week that I started going to a couple years ago. And
it's a lifesaver.
Yes, it is a lifesaver. And just a really great group of women. For those of you here that have come to the Edge for the past couple of years, one of the other members, Jenny Pandolfo, spoke at one of our first Edge nights a couple of years ago. And I asked Sharon to speak because she probably doesn't know this, I'll probably embarrass her, but whenever she talks, she always has just gifts from God. And God has used the things that she has shared in my life tremendously. And she did a Letta study in the group on the book Captivating last year?
It was a year ago because William was just born.
Yeah, just after giving birth to her third child. She leads a study, Superwoman. So I asked her to just come and share her thoughts on the book because it was just tremendous, the things that she had to share.
Thank you. Well, it's a good book.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Sharon. I don't think I know anybody here except Kim. So a little bit about me. I'm a mom of 3 boys. It's like raising hurricanes, not children. They're all 5 and under, so life's a little crazy right now. I am a special needs mom. My oldest has autism and ADHD and a sensory processing disorder, so that's a lot of fun. And my second was born with scar tissue that gave him brain damage, so he's a little bit developmentally delayed, but he's catching up. My third's my first neurotypical child, but he had some weird allergy that made him sick for 6 months that he just got over, so I got a few weeks of sleep, and now I'm feeling a little bit better. So it's never a dull moment at our house. And being the only woman, this book is actually really, really awesome. It's really true. It's the unveiling the mystery of a woman's soul. And I can't speak highly enough about it because, I don't know, we just have so many opinions today about what a woman is and what being feminine really means, particularly in the church. We have this image that the church has really created of what a Christian woman is supposed to be, and in a lot of cases, for those of us who don't fit into that mold, it can end up being very stifling, and we end up hiding who we're really supposed to be. And I really like this book. It doesn't matter if you are a girly girl or a tomboy or quiet or loud. It's not about fitting into a mold. It's about finding who God truly intended for you to be. So I'm just curious, how many of you has anybody here read this yet? Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. It's fabulous stuff. Okay, well, I didn't want to say too much repeat if you'd all read it, but okay, I'm glad that this is new for you. And if I look at my watch a lot, it's not because I don't like being here. I have no concept of time, and if I don't check a lot, I'll have you here till 11 o'clock. So, okay, I really can't even begin to scratch the surface of what this covers tonight, so definitely read this for yourselves because I'm going to do my best, but there's just so much. It's a little book, but there's a lot of really good stuff in here. There's a lot of beautiful personal testimonies of women that it's like every one of us has such a different story that there's going to be one in here that really speaks to your heart. So I just really strongly encourage you to read this for yourself. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the book, and then I'm going to share a little bit of my own testimony because growing up, particularly in my adolescence, I had a really strong identity crisis, like went completely crazy. And it was only years later, after kind of God had brought me through my healing process, that then I read this book and I said, wow, this like totally explained everything. I wasn't nuts. Like there actually was a reason for everything that I thought and felt. So that's why I love this book so much. So, okay, women. What are we? We're complicated. We're mysterious to the male race. We're just so many things. And we're truly created in God's image. All the things that we think, the things that we feel, the desires of our heart, they're truly just a reflection of God. And we've lost that in our society. You know, we have these concerns that we're too little, too much, too needy, not enough of this or not enough of that. We have these deep longings and passions in our hearts that I think a lot of us feel like, oh, that's child fairy tales. This is the real life. We're just going to hide these desires to, be romance, to be in a relationship, to have someone come rescue us, to go on an adventure. You know, these are things that they feel like they belong in children's stories, and yet we feel them deep in our hearts for a reason. And this talks about that. What we the way that they describe it is every woman has 3 core desires in her heart. The first is to be romanced. The second is to play an irreplaceable role in some grand adventure. And the third is to have a beauty to unveil. It looks different in each of us, but if you think about it, if you go back to your childhood, when we had the swirly twirly skirts and the sparkles and the pride in wanting to revel in our parents' love and affection, and do you notice me, and am I beautiful, and do you see me? When we grow up, we kind of feel like we have to put that aside, but we still feel that. And so this is about bringing that back out again and having God answer those questions for us, because we live in a fallen world and they weren't answered the way that they should have been. I'm already getting ahead of myself. So, but anyway, I just noticed in my life, like I would just, with the kids, right? It's just so much life happening. I would just be driving around doing errands. I remember I'd just sit in a parking lot and like just start crying randomly. I just gotten groceries, and it's like there's got to be something more to life than this, right? I cannot tell you the diapers, 3 in diapers, right? There were days, I have 3 in diapers. That's all I do all day long. It gets to you after a while. Makes you a little crazy. And these things that you feel like they belong only in fairy tales, you just begin to wonder, isn't there more to life than this? Why do I still have this longing to, want to be loved, to want to feel beautiful, to want to feel irreplaceable? You feel like you could just hire some random maid to replace you and nobody would miss you. And that's a lie. That's a lie that a lot of us have come to believe. So it all goes back to the creation story. I love the way that they tell this story. I almost just want to read it out loud, but I don't want to spoil it for you, so I want you to go in there and read it yourself. But for me, growing up, I heard the creation story all wrong. I really did. I read it in the Bible, and I heard it one way, and it totally changed the perspective of who I thought I was supposed to be. And the way that they described it is this. They said, imagine it like a symphony, right? So you're in the hall, the music hall, the lights are out, you're kind of hearing the orchestra warming up, and the music just begins to build and build and build and get more intricate and more beautiful, and it swells to hit this glorious crescendo, and you've just enjoyed this incredible experience. And that's what a lot of creation was like. They say, imagine the earth was void, right? It was dark. And then God speaks and there is light. And then the sun and the moon and the stars come out. The land comes out. Now we have green things growing and trees and animals, and things are getting more beautiful and more intricate, and it's escalating and escalating. And then we have the glory of creation, and here comes Adam. And what happens? God actually says, this is not good. And that's not how I heard that story. But God says this is not good. Creation doesn't end with Adam. It actually ends with Eve. Eve is the climax of creation. Even Paul says in 1 Corinthians 11, they're talking about the head coverings that they used to do back in that time. They explain why. He says, for a man indeed not ought to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God, but woman is the glory of man. We actually were the crowning point of creation. And if you think about that, you complete creation. The whole creation process was not complete until we came on the scene. If God had stopped with Adam, it wouldn't have worked. Adam only contains half the image of God, and we carry the other half, and we fit together so beautifully, man and woman. This book actually has a counterpart, which I also strongly recommend. It's The Wild at Heart for Men, and it helped me understand my husband so well. These really fit together so beautifully. God put half of his image in each of us at creation. So for men have different desires, different different questions at their core. They need a battle to fight. They need an adventure to go on and someone to rescue, a beauty to go after like they have in the movies, right? But their essence is their strength. And we're different. They're the image of the warrior God and the king, and God is coming to rescue and to save, and that's the essence of God that men carry. But we carry a different part. We want to be romanced. So what does that say about God? He wants to be pursued, right? Doesn't he say, seek me and you'll find me if you seek me with all of your heart? He wants to be fought for. It's why we long for relationships. And if you will pardon me, I just can't say it as well as this book, so I'm going to just read you a couple of really short excerpts. But that first one about being romanced. God says in Isaiah, "But Zion said, the Lord has forsaken me, the Lord has forgotten me. Can a mother forget the baby at her breast and have no compassion on the child she has borne? Though she may forget, I will not forget you, declares the Lord." Then in Jeremiah, "I will give them a heart to know me, that I am the Lord. They will be my people, and I will be their God, for they will return to me with all their heart." And in Matthew, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how often I have longed to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing." What a comfort to know that this universe we live in is relational at its core, that our God is a tender-hearted God who yearns for relationship with us. And he sent that message through us. That's why we're always longing for relationships. We define ourselves by the relationships we have, whether it's with men, whether it's with women, our family, our girlfriends, whether we're married, whether we're single, we're always having this deep yearning to relate. And if you think about it, that's how much the Lord longs to really get to know us and be loved by us. And that was really a mind-blowing concept for me, that God is yearning for us to love him in that way, in that deep way that we feel. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have a really great husband. He is awesome and amazing and everything that I needed to have in a relationship. And yet there are still times where in my marriage I can still feel lonely. And I don't know if anybody else relates to that, but that's a deep feeling that God has placed in our heart that can only really be filled by him. But even still, it's there always as a reminder, one, to drive us back to him, but two, that like he's feeling that longing for us. And that's something that we bring to this world, is that reminder that that's what God's looking for, to be in a romantic type relationship with us. We also want to be, to have an irreplaceable role in a grand adventure. And this was my big thing, especially as a child. I just was very passionate and zestful about everything. I always wanted to be big and grand and into the epic movies, and I wanted to be the person that like traveled the world and saw everything and have these big old grand adventures. And it's desperately needed in this time. Excuse me, I'm so sorry, I'm still getting over something. One of the quotes from the book they say here, though, is it's different from men. Men need an adventure. They need something to conquer because they need to know that they have what it takes. They need to know that they're a man. So that's why they test their manliness periodically, and they need to go on these adventures and do some things that don't always appear bright to us. But they need that. They need that. We don't have to understand it. We just have to be okay with it, that sometimes they need to go off and do that. But for us, it looks a little bit different. It says here, we do not want the adventure merely for adventure's sake, but for what it requires of us for others. We don't want to be alone in it. We want to be in it with others. But we want to feel irreplaceable. Yes? I mean, don't we just want to be needed? We want to come through for people, and that's also a deep desire of our hearts. And I think that's why a lot of us, at least I have to speak for myself here, being home with kids, I would have like this identity crisis. You know, here I had these dreams to go off and have like this grand adventure, and here I am washing the same dishes and wiping the same butts, and it's just, it's looking the same day after day, and I'm going a little bit crazy. And the Lord kind of had to, I went on a whole completely different journey for that, and I realized that I am really irreplaceable right where I am on an adventure that God has tailored just for me. It's not insignificant in the least bit, but we do have that desire deep in our hearts. We want to share it with someone. And what's neat here, I'm totally going to mispronounce this completely wrong, but the Hebrew word for the helpmate that we hear, right? So we've heard the creation story where God creates Adam. Adam is not well alone, right? God says this is not good. I'm going to create a helper for him, right? That's the English word that we get, and we lose so much when we go from Hebrew to English. We really do. And the word that they create here, or that is used here, is called an ezer kenegdo. And it's, he says that, there was a Hebrew scholar, and he said this phrase is always like really difficult to translate. And the various attempts we have in English are helper or companion or the notorious helpmeet. And why are these translations so incredibly wimpy and boring and flat and disappointing? What is a helpmeet anyway? What little girl dances through the house singing, "One day I shall be a helpmeet," or a companion? Says a dog can be a companion, and a helper, it sounds like hamburger helper. The closest that they can get is a sustainer beside him. And they write here the word ezer is used only 20 other places in the entire Old Testament. And in every other instance, the person being described is God himself, when you need him to come through for you desperately. And they list a whole bunch of verses from the book of Psalms. I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help. Most of the contexts are life and death, by the way, and God is your only hope, your ezer. If he is not there beside you, you are dead. A better translation, therefore, of ezer would actually be a lifesaver, and kenegdo means alongside or opposite to, a counterpart. You see, the life God calls us to is not a safe life. Ask Joseph, Abraham, Moses, Deborah, Esther, any of the friends of God from the Old Testament. Ask Mary and Lazarus. Ask Peter, James, and John. Ask Priscilla and Aquila. Any of the friends of God in the New Testament. God calls us to a life involving frequent risks and many dangers. Why else would we need him to be our ezer? You don't need a lifesaver if your mission is to be a couch potato. You need an ezer when your life is in constant danger. And the Lord gave a great commission to all of us, in the beginning. Rule over this land, be fruitful, be multiply, go forth. And he gave it to man and woman together. And man is incomplete without us. And that was something that I didn't understand when I read the creation story. And then lastly, the beauty to unveil. This is us. I mean, from day one to now, none of us ever stop longing to be beautiful, inside and out. And I don't know about you, I love my action movies. My husband and I do that whole thing, but I could still do any Disney princess movie, and it's that moment when the princess is at the top of the stairs and her beauty's finally revealed and she's in the gorgeous gown and we see her for who she really is, and you have that moment and you kind of wish it was you. And this is God all over again. His essence is beauty, and he shows it to us all the time. I mean, first of all, just look at nature, right? Nature, all the beauty we see in nature, there's no functionality to it. It's just there because God loves beauty and loves to lavish it on us and do it, extravagantly, and they like to say even scandalously. Just look at the flowers and the trees and the mountains and the hills, whatever landscape, suits you, and there's just so much and so much variety, and that's how he's created us. There's no one way to be beautiful. There's so much variety, and this is at the very essence and at the very heart of God. And beauty truly speaks. It's really important. It's something that I think we've not understood, and so we've put aside and we've kind of focused on character. And that's important, but not at the diminishment of beauty. That is an inherent longing that God has put in all of us for a really important reason. And I just want to read this story that they wrote in the book here. Let's see here. Okay, I'll back up a little bit. Here we go. So, but in order to make the matter perfectly clear, God has given us Eve, the crowning touch of creation. Beauty is the essence of a woman. We want to be perfectly clear that we mean both a physical beauty and a soulful spiritual beauty. The one depends upon and flows out of the other. Yes, the world cheapens and prostitutes beauty, making it all about a perfect figure few women can attain. But Christians minimize it too, or over-spiritualize it, making it all about character. We must recover the prize of beauty. The church must take it back. Beauty is too vital to lose. God gave Eve a beautiful form and a beautiful spirit. She expresses beauty in both. Better, she expresses beauty simply in who she is, and like God, it is in her essence. And then the author, John, writes the story about him and his wife. Staci and I just spent a weekend together in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which boasts the third largest gathering of art galleries in the world. We love to wander for hours through those galleries and gardens, looking for those works of art that particularly capture us. Toward the afternoon of our second day, Staci asked me, "Have you seen one painting of a naked man?" The point was startling. After days of looking at maybe 1,000 pieces of art, we had not seen one painting devoted to the beauty of the naked masculine form. Not one. Now granted, there are a few examples down through history, but only a few. However, the beauty of woman was celebrated everywhere, hundreds of times over in paintings and in sculptures, and there's a reason for this. For one thing, men look ridiculous lying on a bed buck naked, half covered with a sheet. It doesn't fit the essence of masculinity. Something in you wants to say, get up already and get a job, cut the grass, get to work. For Adam is captured best in motion, doing something. His essence is strength in action. That is what he speaks to the world. He bears the image of God, who is a warrior. On behalf of God, Adam says, God will come through, God is on the move. That is why a passive man is so disturbing. His passivity defies his very essence. It violates the way he bears God's image. A passive man says God will not come through. He's not acting on your behalf. On the other hand, and bear with us a moment, Eve just doesn't look right in the scene of brutal combat or chopping a tree down. From time immemorial, when artists have tried to capture the essence of Eve, they have painted her or photographed her or sculpted her at rest. There's no agenda here, there's no social stigmatizing or cultural pressure. This is true across all cultures and down through time. What have artists seen that we have not? Eve speaks something differently to the world than Adam does, and it's through her beauty. And what is that? They go on to describe, and I'm not going to read all of this to you because then I'll just end up reading this whole thing out loud, but beauty does speak, and what does it say? It says, all is going to be well. And they give this example of, imagine you have this just horrible day, whether it's at work and the meetings and the things go wrong, or you're at home and it's crazy and you're running the errands and you're stuck in traffic and you're stressed out and noise and, oh gosh, it's just awful, and you're kind of at that point where if one last thing goes wrong, you're just going to freak out. It's over, right? Take yourself immediately from there to like a quiet park bench, or sitting out on the beach and you're just watching the waves crash in. What does that do to your soul? You just have this moment where you can just breathe, right? And just your heart can kind of expand a little bit, and there's that peace, and it's going to be okay. And that's what they're talking about in 1 Peter when they say, they're looking for women of a gentle and quiet spirit. It has nothing, thank God, to do with how loud or noisy we are, or how quiet or flamboyant or whatever our personalities. It has to do with our spirit. Is our spirit quiet and gentle? Is it at rest? Is it saying, yes, we trust that God is going to be there for us? And this is something that I really struggle with because, as I've described, my life's a little crazy. I mean, Veronica knows. I'm on Facebook. They're throwing furniture down the stairs again. And so I get kind of, and I just have to remember, God's got this. He's here. He's going to handle this. And I'm trying to just remember that it's okay. It's time for my spirit to be at rest and be at peace here, because I know when I'm not like that, I'm crazy now. I'm stressed, and I'm going to start yelling at people, and my husband comes home, and I'm like, I had a horrible day. I need to go run away for a minute. And that's not how we're supposed to represent our image of God to the world. That's not what God created us to be. He created us to be beautiful, to let other people's hearts just be at peace and at rest around us. And that's something I'm probably going to be a lifetime of working at that, but that's something that really spoke to me out of this book.
all the things that beauty does, it speaks that all will be well. It invites, right? Have you ever just listened to some music and you just almost want to like dive into it, or a beautiful picture? It can invite you to come in. It's vulnerable. It nourishes the soul. It can comfort. They say why people send flowers at funerals. Just looking at something beautiful, it does something to you that words can't. It can inspire you. It's transcendent beyond everything else. It's really a little glimpse of eternity. All these things that God does to us, or God is, He is beauty, and all these things that He says about Himself through us, that's what our lives are supposed to speak to this world. And I think a lot of us, I know me personally, we really lost that because what happened? We left Eden. We fell. There's now a sin in the world. And all these beautiful ways that we're supposed to reflect God's image, Satan didn't really like that idea. And he got to all of us, because we're all imperfect. He made sure that all of us were wounded in one way or another, so that we could not do these things, that these core values that we just carry in our heart, we couldn't display God's image to the world. I know me, that's one of the things that like I just said, I'm working on. Does the world see God's reflection in me? And that's something that I'm praying for. And as God's working on me, and as I'm going through this healing process, this book is really great about that. I hope that I'm becoming more and more like Him. Again, it's the work of a lifetime. But we have these questions that we're born with. Am I lovely? Am I captivating? Do you find me beautiful? Am I irreplaceable? Just think for a moment back to your childhood. How were those questions answered for you? We all got wounded in one way or another. I'm trying to find the right words here. The devil always makes sure that those questions, we don't hear the words of God right away. And so we begin to hide and cover who we are, right? It starts right away at the very beginning, again, back in the creation story. Genesis chapter 3, I heard you and I realized I was naked and I was afraid, and so I hid. And we've been hiding ever since. We hide who we think we really are because we don't think we're lovely, we don't think we're needed, we don't think we're irreplaceable, and we're afraid that if people knew who we really were, they'd abandon us. And we do it in so many different ways, but it's part of the curse, and it affects all of us. In the curse, Genesis chapter 3, God says, to the woman He said, I will greatly increase your pain in childbearing, and with pain you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Now they say the curse for Eve, it's not limited only to babies in marriage, because if that was true, then every single woman without children gets to escape the curse. That's not what it means. The meaning is deeper, and the implications are for every daughter of Eve. Woman is cursed with loneliness, which is a relational heartache to us, with the urge to control, right? Especially maybe the men in our lives or the people around us, and with the dominance of men over us, right? Adam's going to rule over us. It's not how things were meant to be. We're not saying it's a good thing. It's a fruit of the fall, and it's a sad fact of history. Isn't it true? Aren't your deepest worries and heartaches relational? Aren't they connected to someone? Even when things are good, is your vast capacity for intimacy ever filled in a lasting way? There is an emptiness in us that we continually try to feed. And can't you see how much you need to have things under your control, whether it's a project or a ministry or a marriage? And are you comfortable trusting your well-being to someone else? And haven't you felt that this is a man's world, or felt that your vulnerability as a woman is a liability? We begin to hate our vulnerability. And instead of being inviting, instead of being that beautiful person whose heart is at rest, who can open and let people approach her, we put up a wall and we begin to guard our hearts in a way that we weren't intended to. Yes, there's that verse about guarding our hearts, and we need to do it. This is something different. This is about putting up a wall so that people can't see who we truly are anymore. And we do that in a couple different ways. Women can go two different ways. We can become very dominating. So, okay, we need to get, we feel like we don't have control. We're believing these lies about us, so we have to control everything. We take charge. We want to be on top. We're just micromanaging everything, and we're busy, and those things can be okay to a certain extent, but it's without tenderness. It's without mercy. It's without vulnerability. We just kind of become these women who just have to control everything, and if we're not, we're going to just start going crazy because we're losing our sense of identity. Or we can go the other way, which is we can become very desolate, very clingy, very needy. We don't exist without people around us. We don't have an opinion. One of the great examples they gave here is, how many of you seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding? Yeah, so think about the first scenes in that movie where Tula is just hiding behind the frumpy clothes. She literally hides behind the counter, right, at one point when the guy comes up to pay his check. And that's kind of an extreme example, but we can do that. We can just sort of hide who we are and just get lost in the crowd. And again, that's not what God intended for us. God intended for us to be his image to a lost world, and we can't do that if we're hiding who we truly are. We begin to indulge. We eat, we shop, we daydream, we hide ourselves in books and movies, and we remove ourselves from a world that we were supposed to be ministering to, and we try to feed this ache or this longing inside of us with stuff. And it can become addictions. It can be food, it could be smoking. It could just, what it is. I stress eat all the time, and that's something that I'm still working on, but that's just kind of like how I keep myself going. And what happens is it pushes God and it pushes the people around us away, because we're like, okay, I got this. I'll just feed this hurt myself, and I don't need God, I don't need anybody else, and that's the opposite of God, what God wants us to do here. And again, we just live in total fear all the time of being abandoned. If people knew who I was, people knew what was really going on inside, they wouldn't like me anymore. And I think at the very core of all of us, even though we never voice it, that's something that we all feel in one way or another. If people knew this truth about me, it'd be over. And so we hide who we truly are. So what we do is we make these agreements, and I'm going to kind of give you my own testimony here as an example. So this is kind of how it works. I misunderstood the creation story. I heard, it is good, it is good, it is good. Man got lonely, so we'll just kind of throw in woman as an afterthought, right? I don't know if anybody else of you heard that when they heard the creation story the first time, but that's how I heard the creation story. Woman was totally an afterthought. God was going to end it all with man, and oh geez, all right, we'll just throw in Eve as a little bonus at the end there. And so I really kind of saw women as second class. And growing up, it was kind of interesting for me. I have a really big generational gap in my family. My parents got married very late in life, so there's about 40 years difference between me and my parents. So already there's like a really big paradigm difference, right, going on there. And then my mother's from South America, so she came from a totally different culture. It was very different to be a woman there than it was to be here for her growing up. I think, can't leave the house without a male chaperone, and we have a lot of rules, and this is what it really is to be a woman. And then she had me, and I really just, I saw my mom, and I saw my aunts, my teachers, and even my grandmother. They were just like, they were serving the family. And can be a really good thing, but in my childhood eyes, I saw something totally different. I saw that what it meant to be a woman was you didn't get to be you. You had to put all of yourself aside, all of your passions, all of your desires, and you just kind of had to be this servant to everyone else. And that's not what it was, but that's how I saw it. And what happens is, this is not like an I blame my parents kind of thing. It's the devil sees an opportunity and he just starts whispering in your ear, right? So it doesn't even, some of us are really deliberately wounded. I know some of us have been abused verbally or sexually. Some of us have been just tormented by people. I mean, when I went to school growing up, I heard it all. I actually have Asperger's, a mild form of it, so growing up was like hell. When I was in school, I was the one everybody picked on, cheated, conned, teased, and tormented, and the teachers weren't really much better. So I kind of just grew afraid of people, and I really started to hide who I was. Where was I going with that? I began to see that I began to tell myself, the wound was, you're not going to get to be who you truly are, who you truly want to be, because you're a woman. You're second class. That was the lie that I believed. And the devil just kind of kept feeding into it. Every situation, every scenario that came up in my life, it would just sort of feed into that lie. You know, look at your mom, look at your grandmom, look at the teachers around you. They just they've given up everything. They don't get to have any fun. They don't get to be who they really are. They don't get to chase their passions and their pursuits. They're just second-class citizens. You know, God is into the men. The men get to have all the fun and go on all the adventures and do all the things for him. And women are just, you know, whatever, they feed everybody. So, yes, we're Italian. We feed everybody. But, so I began to despise how I was created. I began to wish that I had been born a man, because I thought that would only be the way I could truly fulfill, you know, who I wanted to be, these passions that I was feeling inside. And I am so grateful that I was raised in a Christian family where I just knew that homosexuality and all this transgendering and all that stuff was not allowed, because honestly, I probably would have seriously considered it. I rejected everything feminine about myself. I dressed like a guy, and I walked like a guy, and I talked like a guy, and I would make fun of, you know, my girlfriends if they wore makeup or wanted to look pretty, because I saw being beautiful as a weakness. I transferred from a really sheltered private school life into public school right at adolescence. So I saw every good-looking girl in school just draped over the body of some guy, and it was this cheap form, right, that the world shows us of beauty. And I just said, that's weak, that's cheap, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And I just rejected the whole thing without understanding what it was truly supposed to be. And so I kind of made this agreement in my head that I have to be tough, and I have to hide my vulnerability and build this wall if I'm going to be who I'm really supposed to be. I didn't think that you could be strong and be a woman. I didn't think you could be beautiful and be strong at the same time. I just didn't understand how this whole thing really worked, and I rejected the whole thing out of hand. And I was a long time work in progress. I still am. I'm going to say that a lot. And God brought me my husband, who was really awesome. He kind of saw something that nobody else did and just started chipping away at my shelf. God love him. And I began to learn what it was to be okay, to feel beautiful. It was many, many years. But even still, it still kind of affected my marriage, because, okay, I still feel like I need to be in control. I need to kind of be this dominating person. I don't want to appear weak in any way, right? You can't appear vulnerable in any way. So, right now I'm not going to let my husband help me, even though maybe secretly I want him to. I got to look like I have this together. And it does stuff to your relationships with people, because we hear this lie that you're not beautiful, so fine, I'm going to eat and gain 50 pounds and just hide who I really am. Or maybe I've been abused and I think that I'm not worth anything, so now I'm just going to, my whole life is going to just subsist around this lie. We make this agreement and we just follow through on it, and it affects all of our relationships. It affects how we do life. And it's because the devil hates to see God's image in us. He wants to just destroy and mar this in every way that he can. And this is how he does it. He gets us to see a lie, he gets us to believe it, and he gets us to make this promise to ourselves: I'm never going to be found out. You know, I'm just, all right, I have to be good enough. I have to struggle and strive in this area my entire life. I have to look like I have it together on the outside. And we're exhausted because we're constantly straining and struggling to be this person who really not, nor someone we were even supposed to be. And that, I think, is why we're tired and we're lonely. And that's not the end of the story, thank God. There is healing. And as Christians, there's a lot of emphasis on evangelism. And there should be. But I think a lot of us get this sense that, okay, I'm saved, I've got my ticket to heaven, and now we're just going to turn around and start doing ministry and going out and proclaiming the gospel. And again, we really need to be doing that, but that's not where our stories end. God has so much healing and so much work. Getting saved is like step number 1 of like a million steps. And he really wants to bring healing. How did he open his ministry? He quotes the prophet Isaiah. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. How many of us have carried like this secret sorrow or this secret longing that's just affected who we are all of our lives? It starts from when we're little. And that's why God's come here, to heal that in us. And think of it this way. This is a really just horrible example, but it kind of illustrates the point. So you're a parent, and you get that phone call you always dread. You know, your kid's been in a car accident. You got to come to the hospital quickly. We don't know what's going on. So you run to the hospital, and they tell you it's kind of touch and go. We don't know if you're going to save their lives. It was really, really bad. You know, you sit in the waiting room for that, 20-hour surgery, and your heart's in your throat, and you just don't know what's going on. Is your child going to live? Is your child going to die? This was really bad. And the doctor comes out and says, okay, good news, your child is going to live, but, and then it's like your worst fear, but they're never going to walk again, or maybe there was really bad brain damage, or you just, that thing, and you wouldn't want the doctor to turn around and go, but it's okay, they're alive, our job is done. That wouldn't be enough for you. I mean, you would turn heaven and earth to get your kid what they needed to, be rehabilitated and to come to full healing. And that's what's happened in our lives. It's not just enough that our lives have been saved. There's so much healing and so much work that the Lord wants to do in our lives. And we kind of gyp ourselves of a lot of that if we just go, okay, I'm saved, I'm okay, I'll just sort of muddle through. The Lord has so much healing and so much work that he wants to do in our lives. And it's just, he just repeats himself over and over. In the book of Zechariah, the Lord their God will save them on that day as the flock of his people. They will sparkle in his land like jewels in a crown. How attractive and beautiful they will be. That's what he wants to do with our lives, to bring that kind of healing. And how does he do it? It's actually through the pain. I'm just going to read this small section here. Why did God curse Eve with loneliness and heartache, an emptiness that nothing would be able to fill? Wasn't her life going to be hard enough out there in the world, banished from the garden that was her true home, her only home, never able to return? It seems unkind, cruel even. He did it to save her. For as we all know personally, something in Eve's heart shifted at the fall. Something sent its roots down deep into her soul, and ours. That mistrust of God's heart, right? Is now what the snake told her. Is that what God really said? That resolution to find life on her own terms. I'm going to make my life this way. Nobody's going to see what I really am. So God has to thwart her. In love, he has to block her attempts until, wounded and aching, she turns to him and him alone for rescue. And there's the passage from Hosea. Therefore I will block her path with thorn bushes. I will wall her in so she cannot find her way. She will chase after her lovers, but not catch them. She will look for them, but not find them. Jesus has to thwart us too. Thwart our self-redemptive plans, our controlling and our hiding, thwart the ways we are seeking to fill the ache within us. Otherwise, we would never fully turn to him for our rescue. And so that's why all the things that we do to indulge, to hide, it's never going to completely take care of it. It might temporarily, but if it didn't, we would never turn to the Lord for our full healing. And so there's some beautiful steps of healing, and again, you really cannot strongly recommend this enough. Please read it, but I'm just going to kind of list them here. First thing we have to do is the hardest, is to let go of control. And all these things that we've been doing, break down those walls that we use to hide ourselves and to toughen ourselves up and become vulnerable again. And it's scary because then you're susceptible to pain. But that's how doctors do their work, right? We have to open it up and bring it to light, maybe dig at it a little bit so that the healing can begin. Jesus says again in Hosea, "Therefore I am now going to allure her, and I will lead her into the desert and speak tenderly to her." It really is a beautiful relationship and healing process. We have to invite Christ in again. I gave you control of my life and asked you for salvation, but now I have to give you control of this hurt. I have to let go and say, it's okay, I'm going to trust you with this lie that I believe, that I'm not enough, that I'm not beautiful, that I don't have something to offer this world. These are lies that we believe. And we have to invite Christ in and give that to him and renounce these agreements that we've made, that I have to be tough to make it through life, or that I have to hide who I truly am, or that I'm not worth anything. These are agreements that we make, and we have to renounce them. And then we do have to grieve, because it's going to hurt. We've believed something for a long time, and it's damaged who we're supposed to truly be. And it's okay. If it didn't hurt, it wouldn't be a big deal, but it is a big deal, because this is who we were supposed to be. And so grieving is part of that process. And then forgiving. We live in a fallen world. We were wounded by wounded people. And we have to go through that, and we have to ask for forgiveness, and we have to be able to forgive. And then ask for healing, and let God be our Father. And what's really beautiful is at this point, it's scary for some people. I was kind of excited, but I know this can be scary for some people. You have to ask God, show me how you see me. What is it that you truly intended for me? How is it that you see me? And then let him romance you, because he knows you so specifically that he's going to be able to do those little things that nobody else in the world is going to know about. And that was interesting for me. Being a parent was one of the greatest things that happened to me in terms of me understanding my relationship with God. Because, I look at my kids, and could you just imagine, seeing your child look in the mirror and be like, ugh, I don't look good, I'm worthless, I don't have anything to kind of bring to this world. And wouldn't it just break your heart, this child that you love and you see all this potential and beauty in? And yet that's what we do, so many of us, when we look in the mirror. And that's not what God intended. And when you ask him to show you how he really sees you, some really neat things start to come up. And they're going to be so personalized to you. And that was a little weird for me, because emotions are not my strong point. My tendency towards Asperger's makes me overanalyze everything to death. And when I start going down the whole road of romance, I can just textbook it to the point where it's just not fun anymore. And I said, okay, God, I'm just going to kind of let this go. I'm going to try this with you. Waken up my heart a little bit here. Romance me. Show me, what it is that you see about me. And just some weird little things that wouldn't mean anything to anybody else started happening in my life. And it was just sort of like little things where God said, I love you. And I know you love this, so here's a little gift for me to you. And they just started happening here and there, and over a long period of time. It was really a beautiful process. And it just really made me feel loved and made me feel more secure in who I was supposed to be. And it's making me more confident. Look, I can wear makeup now. I tell you, this is so true. I was so scared of people looking at me. I really was. At one time, girls in my youth group kidnapped me. They really had to kidnap me because I went kicking and screaming. And they took away my clothes, and they gave me these really cute clothes, and they put makeup on me, and they curled my hair, and they made me look all beautiful. And I turned every head in the place when I went to dinner, and it was nice. People were being nice. They're like, wow, you look so beautiful, this and that. And do you know, I went into the bathroom, and I sat in the stall, and I closed the door, and I hid, and I cried. Because I did not know how to handle that kind of attention. It was just scary to be that open in front of people. And I'm in a better place now. And it's just one of the things that the Lord has done for me, and it really is beautiful. And just imagine if your heart was kind of truly free. If these things that we've believed about ourselves, these negative things that have caused us to hide and hold ourselves back for so long, if we took those questions to God, am I truly, deep down inside and outside, beautiful? Am I really? Do I have something to offer this world that absolutely nobody else has? Am I that irreplaceable to you? Do you love me to romance my heart? If those questions are answered yes by God, can you imagine what you would be like, that ministry that you could give to the world, that you would just be free to open your heart and share your story and minister to people who are hurt and healing and need somebody else to show them the way? That's God's image through us in this world. And that's what we were always intended to be. And so that's kind of where I'm going to leave you. This book was really beautiful. It did a lot for my soul. I hope it will for yours. And I will be happy to answer any questions. I don't know if anybody has any questions about things that I've said. And again, I've barely scratched the surface. There's really a lot more in here. But does anybody have any questions? Okay. Then I am done. That's captivating.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. It meant a lot to me, so